Hello, Brian. This is Dimitris from MetalKaoz in Chicago. Nice seeing your face.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great, especially with
Awesome. Great.
with this album that we have.
Mm.
What an amazing piece of Blitzkrieg music.
Thank you very much. You're very kind.
No, I'm just honest. Okay. uh, so, first of all, I will ask how Nick joined Blitzkrieg, and especially what you guys were looking for a guitarist to join the band.
Well, our long-standing guitar player, Ken Johnson, he'd been in the band for 17 years. And I think he'd reached the point where he basically had enough. Um, he, he felt that he wasn't coming up with anything new and fresh. And he wanted to go and try doing other things because like I say, he'd been in Blitzkrieg for 17 years, which to me is nothing, but to him it was a long time. I mean, I've been in Blitzkrieg since 1980, so but Ken I think wanted to try something new, something different. And when anybody reaches that point in Blitzkrieg, then for me that's the time for them to leave. Because when you're not 100% there anymore, when you don't want to be there, then really you have to leave. It's because I want people that will give 100% to this band. So when Ken left, we decided that we needed someone to breathe some fresh air and fresh life into the band, so we could go forward. And it's never easy finding a replacement for somebody that leaves, because the people that have been in this band have been awesome musicians. They've been great people to work with, and really at the top of the game. So it's never easy finding somebody to fit that category. But whenever somebody leaves, or if ever I've fired anybody, the first port of call is to start going to local venues, and basically seeing who is available, see what's around. Now, I'd been made aware of Nick for a while, so I wanted to go and see what he was like live. And he was in a couple of bands. He's still in those bands, actually. He still has his own bands that he still plays in. And I was blown away by the ability of the gentleman. He is so good. He's a great guitar player. He's a great singer. And so I set my son Alan the task of going getting him, basically. So Alan went off and had a word with him. And basically he just said, "Look, I'm not going to beat about the bush. Blitzkrieg need a new guitar player. Do you want the job?" And Nick, without hesitation, said yes.
Wow.
So he came in, and he's been brilliant, as all of the people that are in the band.
So first pick, and then you got a green light. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's basically it. We didn't have to look at anybody else. Nick just said straight out off the bat, "Yep, I want this job," and he's come in, and every other Blitzkrieg album has been recorded in a recording studio, old school way, the way that we all did it back in the day. And this time we thought, we want to try something different. And my son has his own home recording studio. Nick has a recording studio. So we thought, right, we're going to do this different and see what happens. And it's either going to fail or it's going to be good. So we went with that. We went into a recording studio and got the drums down, because that was impossible to do in a home studio.
That's the old church studio, correct?
Yeah, we went into the old church, and what an amazing place. I've actually just done the new Satan video in there, which was great. So it was an experience to do that. But then we've done everything else ourselves. Between Alan and Nick, between them, have recorded everything. And Nick did all the mixing down. And then when the time was ready, the record company said, "Well, can you master it yourselves?" We said, "Yes, we can." And we mastered it ourselves. So basically, what we've got, I mean, whenever you go into a studio, you basically describe to the engineer what it is that you want and how you want the album to sound. And then what you get is his interpretation of that. Correct. This time, we have got exactly what we wanted. And all fair play to Nick. He has done a wonderful job, I believe. And but it's Blitzkrieg the way we want it to sound.
So do you see the band doing this, following this approach for the...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was hard work, particularly for Nick, of course. But we finished up getting exactly what we want. I mean, you know, there's been times in the past where what the general public have heard is not what I heard in the studio. Okay. And probably the best example of that is the album Mists of Avalon. When I heard it in the studio, it was exactly what I wanted. It had a lot of heavy overtones and everything. But when the record company took it to the pressing plant, they EQ'd all of the bottom end out of it. And it was just left top end trebly. It wasn't at all the way I wanted it to sound. And a lot of people, you know, a lot of Blitzkrieg fans and people like yourself doing interviews have asked me why that album isn't quite the same as the rest of the Blitzkrieg albums. And that's the reason why. And, you know, we don't want to go back to that thing. We want more control over the way things sound and the way things look, and everything else. So it was really a no-brainer to record it and do everything ourselves. We got the ability to do that, and so we did it that way, and we got it exactly. We got it to sound exactly the way we wanted it to sound. So that to me is something that we need to go forward with, and I think that's probably the way that we will go now.
That's great to hear, especially from a band that has been around since the 80s, because I think back in the 80s, there was no control of these things. You had to go in the studio, spend tops 1 week. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we went into the studio, you know, you would go in and you would record, and then the engineer would mix it all down, and then they go, "There you go." And you'd say, "Oh, can we not do it?" No, it's done. It's finished. You had no say at all. And Neat Records were very, very, very keen on having their sound. No matter what band it was, you knew it came from Neat Records. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory way, because I loved my time at Neat Records. It was like a family. We all knew each other. We all from time to time did guest spots on each other's albums and things like that. So it was a great time. But unfortunately, you know, a Blitzkrieg album sounded pretty much like anybody else's album coming out of Neat Records, because the producers just produced exactly what they wanted to hear. No matter what the band wanted, it was just one of those things. And you didn't get a huge amount of time to record either. You were given a time, you're right, you've got 2 weeks, you've got to, you know, whatever. And if you weren't finished in that time, tough. That's it. It goes out as it is. And you know, there was a couple of times I managed to persuade David Wood at Neat Records to give me more time. Unholy Trinity was one of them. I wanted to do something, and I persuaded him to let me have more time. And what I wanted to do was, I'd always wanted to do Countess Bathory because it's my favorite Venom song. And so he allocated us more time to record that. And I even persuaded Conrad to come and sing on it with me as well. So that was really cool. But usually you had to do exactly as you were told. And I think that's how record companies worked back then. Even the independents, the big guys like EMI, you had no say at all. If they decided you were going to do it like this or like that, that was it. It was going to get done like that. And I think it's nice now that bands can have the situation in the dawn of the digital age where you can do it yourself pretty much. Um, it's a good thing from that point of view.
It is.
So, yeah,
But
I'm not so keen on downloading, mind you, because I think that's killing music. Because that kind of, so somebody goes out and buys your album, puts it up on the internet, and within minutes, everybody in the world's got a copy of your album for nothing. It's wrong. It's totally wrong.
it is. And it's not the same thing getting the vinyl, right, on the turntable, but that's a different.
Well, it is different, but it's not. I mean, when I was a kid growing up, I used to delight in going to my local record store and buying. Well, I'm saying local. It was in a town which was probably about 10 or 11 miles away. And I would get on the bus and I would go and I would buy the new album. And on the way home, I would look at the pictures on the sleeve, and you would read all of the lyric sheets and everything. It was something.
Yes.
A digital thing. You can't hold it in your hand. It's just there. It's just, to me, boring. And I know we've got Blitzkrieg's got 2 singles released from the album already, and the third one's coming up. And yeah, whatever. I mean, digital releases. Nah, just wait till the album comes out. Get them,
Yeah.
The actual physical copy of it. You can't beat that.
No, I absolutely agree. And even the digital singles, if there were 7 inches, then that would have been a different discussion, right?
Yeah, I mean, we I approached the record company and I said, look, Michael, is there any way we can have these songs released on a 7-inch single as well? And they said, it's not really worth it.
Jeez.
Because I totally get it. It costs the same to produce a CD single as it does to produce a CD album.
Mm-hmm.
It costs the same to produce a vinyl, whether it's 7-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch, whatever. You've still got to put a sleeve on it, and you've still got to, whatever. So I totally get it. But I mean, these singles are released for nothing more than basically give people a taste of what they're going to get on the album. I think which is what the original singles were meant for back in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they ever looked at them as being anything else other than a promotional tool. The general public made it into a collectible thing. But I'm sure that when the Beatles decided to put out "Love Me Do," that they didn't think, oh, this is going to be the end. It was to advertise their first album, and so I guess we're still doing that, really.
Yeah. So why, hearing you describing how you recorded the album, how Nick joined the band, and how you produced the record, it means this is a question. You named the album Blitzkrieg. Is this the band's way reintroducing the band to the scene?
Can be. I mean, it could be. It wasn't thought that way.
Okay.
I mean, really, that would be quite romantic to say, oh yeah, let's introduce the new lineup, and this is a new age. Let's go with this. No, it wasn't done that way.
No.
That would be romantic. That would be really nice. And I wish we'd thought of it, but no, we didn't. It was simply, we were sitting after we'd completed the album. We were having a celebratory drink, and it was coffee, not it wasn't alcohol.
You are destroying all romanticism right now. Come on.
I know. I would rather have had some alcohol, but it wasn't available. We just finished recording the album. We'd done the final touches to it. So we sat down because we have a rehearsal room. Where everything is set up all the time. That's where we recorded it. And we have a lounge area where we can sit and have a cup of coffee. So that's what we did. We sat down and had a cup of coffee, and we said, right, what we're calling this album. And to be honest with you, I hadn't really thought about it. And I don't think anybody else had either, because we'd spent so much time recording this album because of the interruption of COVID and everything else that went with it. We just wanted to do it. And we never thought for 1 second what to call the album. And then Nick just said, well, every other band on the planet pretty much has got an album of just self-titled, Led Zeppelin, like Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, they've all kind of done it. The Beatles' White Album, the Metallica Black Album, And I said, there's some merit in that. We've never done it, so maybe we should. So it's better late than never, but there's the reason.
Well, we may need to change the story, right?
Yeah, just whatever you like, really. It's
what about the cover artwork? So did this came after you picked the title? Yeah.
No, funnily enough, we always had the ideas because me and my son Alan had kind of thought, what can we put on there? I mean, when you do a Blitzkrieg product, it's kind of like Iron Maiden, with Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
The Blitzkrieg bird has to be there. We've never released anything without the bird being on, and he has to be there. So he doesn't necessarily have to take center stage, but he has to be there. Like on Mists of Avalon that I was talking about before, he's actually on the shield on
right.
the knight has got on his arm. On Holy Trinity, he's a gargoyle on the top of a building. He doesn't have to be center stage, but we kind of described what we wanted to an artist who then produced what you see. What we wanted was some little snips from previous artwork from different album covers. And we wanted a couple of things from the new artwork, from the new album, sorry. And he came up with that. And there's one thing on it that I'm not massively keen on, but I totally get why the artist did it. He employed a bit of what we call in England artistic license.
Okay.
And if you remember, if you cast your memory back to the original single, Buried Alive, stroke Blitzkrieg, mustn't forget that. There's a couple of little statues,
right,
one on either side of a futuristic city. And what it was supposed to be one of those futuristic statues. But the artist decided, I'm not going to copy those. I'm going to come up with my own statue, and he put it there. So there's a statue on the right-hand side, I believe it is, just above the car. The car has a spider on the bonnet, which is from the new album. One of the buildings in the distance has a guy falling from the roof.
That's
Vertigo.
Right?
Yeah. But the rest of it, there's little pieces from quite a few other Blitzkrieg albums in the cover. I won't say what they all are. I don't mind telling you what the new ones are, but I think that's part of the fun to sort of what we were talking about before. Absolutely. To actually hold the physical copy and have a look and see what it is.
Okay, so now that we connected the dots between the title, the cover artwork, let's talk about some of the songs. So yeah. I loved If I Told You, because I'm an X-Files fan, all that stuff. I know that you like Doctor Who, right?
Of course, yeah.
So I'm very curious to hear, how did you write the lyric? What prompted you to write those lyrics?
Well, I wanted to write a song about the Kennedy assassination all my life.
Really?
And yeah, I've wanted to do it, and kind of similarly as I wrote the song about Jack the Ripper and Holy Trinity, I wanted to be sure that when I write the song, I wanted to name the people or person that was actually responsible for the killing of Kennedy. Over the years, I've kind of mellowed on that, and it's kind of just thinking a little. So rather than do an entire song about Kennedy, I decided to do just one verse. Miss Saxon have already done it, Dallas 1 p.m., and I didn't want people to say, oh, Lord, they compare the two. So I thought the best thing to do was to get three of the things that interest me, like from, as you say, X-Files idea. So you've got the Kennedy assassination in the first verse. In the second verse, you have the Roswell incident. And in the third one, the Zodiac killer.
Yes.
So I thought that was probably the best way to go. And so rather than name anybody, I've just kind of put it out there, sort of like who shot the president, John F. Kennedy, who was standing on the grassy knoll, what weren't we told about that?
Right.
Why weren't we told the full truth? And I'm personally, I believe that I know exactly who it was that killed Kennedy, but I want to stay alive, so I'm not going to tell anybody, which is why that line in the song is, if I told you, I'd have to kill you. Because I firmly believe that if I started saying things like that, I'd probably finish up dead somewhere. And I kind of like being alive, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I'm
Let's
going to
not
hang
do
on
that.
to it as long as I can. So yeah. Second verse, the Roswell incident. The American government had great fun with that, covering it up, claiming it was a weather balloon and stuff.
Mhm.
And we all knew at the time that it wasn't. I mean, obviously, I was too young because it was 1959. I was only 5 years old at the time. But in later years, I got really interested in that, as I am in my sort of extraterrestrial involvement of anything. And I've got my own ideas on all of this. But I think in movies they've got kind of close to the truth about what happened at Roswell, and I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever. And even the American government now admit that they do have an alien spacecraft. They don't say that it's in Area 51, but we all know that it is.
Yes.
You know, so that's why the second verse. And again, don't ask me to give you the answer to these questions.
I want to live
Of course.
too, right?
I'm not saying to you. I'm just saying that's how I feel about it. It's kind of like you're treading on dangerous ground when you're dealing with the American government about stuff like that. So you don't want to be doing that. And finally, again, it's an American thing. But it's nothing to do with the at least I don't think it's anything to do with the American government. The Zodiac killer. He wrote ciphers and codes and things on pieces of paper, basically, and sent them to the police, just kind of tempting them to try and crack the codes to see what his real name was. And he always said that his name was in the codes.
Mhm.
I found that quite interesting, but there wasn't enough information available on it to sort of keep your interest for an entire song. So chucking it on there with the other two would seem to me to be the perfect solution to it. It's one of those things. There was somebody that I know in the States was pushing me to write this song, and it just seemed to me that he was a little bit too involved with it. So I know for a fact he personally couldn't be the Zodiac killer, but his father could have been. I just think that he was trying to push me to write the song just that little bit too much. So I thought, now this is dangerous stuff. So I'm going to leave it where it is, just as a verse of one song, and that to me does it. And the little codicil of "Don't ask me for the answers. If I told you, I'd have to kill you," just makes the whole thing nice.
Although we are talking through an internet connection, so I don't know how would you do that. But anyways, I don't want to learn how would you kill me. I'm joking.
No, I'm not saying it's actually. I'm not saying to the listener, if you ask me what the answer is, if I told you, I'd have to kill you. That's what people are going to do if you start saying, "This is how Kennedy was shot. This who did it. This is who did it. This is the Roswell thing. We all know that there's an alien involvement here, and the Zodiac killer was never caught. And I just think that maybe somewhere somebody wouldn't like that information to come out. So it's me that would, if I tell you, it would be me that got killed. That's the idea behind it, really.
It's a side note. You mentioned Dallas 1 p.m. So in the latest Saxon album, there's something in Roswell. So in a way, I don't know how you do that. You draw parallels.
Yeah, that was a massive coincidence. I have spoken to Biff about this kind of stuff at length because we're good friends. We have been for a long, long time. Whenever we get together, we always have a good chat about stuff like this. So it wasn't really that much of a surprise to me that he did a Roswell thing at the same time that I did, because it's not that long ago we were talking about it, But it happens. It happens.
So since we are talking about killers, let's talk about Above the Law. What made you visit pull the trigger concept.
Yes, it is. There's 3 songs in the Pull the Trigger trilogy. The first one is about a guy that basically he's contemplating suicide by playing Russian roulette. And at the end of the song, you hear the gunshot and you don't know whether he's dead or alive. In the second song, you discovered that the gentleman in question has survived. The surgeon, he was rushed to hospital. The surgeon saved his life. He's still angry, but he doesn't want to kill himself anymore. So he becomes a hired killer, like an assassin. And then in the third song, something finally gets through to him, and he becomes a vigilante, kind of like the Batman.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a little bit, well, I was going to say he's a little bit more violent than Batman. I don't think many people are more violent than Batman, to be fair. The kill count in the first Batman movie was quite incredible. But no, what this gentleman does in the third installment is in Above the Law. He finds where people have got freed on technicalities when they've done something, like a child killer or whatever. And he finishes off the job. He's the judge, the jury, and the sentence, and he basically kills them. And that's it. When I write songs with more parts than just the original, I always just do 3. I never go beyond that. But never say never. And who knows? I mean, I've done it before with The Prisoner. I've always been a huge fan of The Prisoner from the '60s. So I've written 3 songs about that, and that's in 3 parts as well.
In that particular song, there is something that sounds like a news excerpt. And I think I hear Brian Ross reporting. Is this you?
No. In America, in the '60s, there was a reporter on one of the local stations, TV stations, and he was apparently called Brian Ross. And when we were looking for something to stick on the start of the song, because what you hear is what you hear first of all. The guy is sitting in his car and he's turning the radio thing and tuning in, and he actually he tunes in on the previous track that you've just heard, Vertigo. You hear a little bit of that, then you hear him tuning in a bit more, then you hear about the reporter Brian Ross reporting, and then you hear him go, oh, and then you hear the sound of the gun beat,
Yeah.
And then in the middle of the song, we actually do have a news report read by a lady in the style of the American news readers, but she's actually British. It's Nick's wife that does that, and it just it all works and it all fits together.
I like that you have so much depth in the music making of things, and I hope we are not giving major spoilers and not having people actually go through this stuff. But yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I think people know that I don't like to write what I consider to be cliches.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could write them. Chuck away songs, really, just like you hear them, you throw them away. Whatever. They're not about anything in particular. It's just a way of filling in the space where you need a vocal. I'm not like that. I like to write stories. I always have done. I write stories about things that interest me. That it might be a movie that I've watched, or a TV series like The Prisoner, for instance, or it could be a book that I've read, a news item, something that someone's told me. Somebody might have said, "Oh, why doesn't somebody write a song about this?" And I'll listen and I'll think, "I'll write a song about that," And that's what I do. I write stories. So even though I'm telling you what these stories are about, they've not heard them. People haven't heard them yet, and they've still got the pleasure of being to read the lyric themselves, and they go, "Oh yeah, that's what that's about." So yeah, that's fine.
By the way, I have to say this: you are one of the few singers out there who I have zero problems listening, talking in between songs, really.
Yeah. Well, you see, I'm an old school, what we used to call a frontman in England. And to me, part of the job, I learned from the best: Rob Halford, Ian Gillan, you know, Mark Bolan. And basically these people would talk to an audience in between songs and engage an audience and involve them in the show. And when I was a kid watching other bands, I used to like that. I used to like that, you know, the band is involving me here. I'm part of the show. I'm not just standing watching a band here. I'm actually part of the show. And you know, you can pick out somebody from the audience, and you can actually speak directly to that one person, and they take that away, and they'll remember that forever. Yeah. And you know, to me, that is an important part of it. To be able to, you know, I mean, there's too many. That was, this is, you know. That was a song called Unholy Trinity. This one is called, from the new album, it's called blah, blah, blah. That's boring. Anybody can do that. I like to talk to people, you know. And I just kind of hope that people like it. They generally seem to. I've never had any complaints about it, apart from the drummer in Satan. He complains about it most bitterly because he wants to get on with the next song. And it's basically, he wants me to shut up so we can do that. But, you know, I just like it. And it's nice that you have pointed that out and said that that I'm one of the few people you can actually listen to between songs. So that's really nice. Thank you.
I usually say, oh, now class is in session now. Let's hear the man.
Well, I used to be a teacher, so.
I know that. So let's not change subjects. Let's keep talking about Killers, right? You had the night he came home. So how did this idea started? Because it sounds to me that someone was starting playing the riff, the main theme of the movie, and then you picked on that.
Yeah. Well, it's not really. It's something I've wanted to do all my life. Whenever I've written a song, every album I've ever written, I've thought this could be the album that I write this song for, and I never got round to doing it. I'd start and I'd write lyrics, and they wouldn't be right, and I wouldn't be happy with them. And then eventually, you know, my son Alan said to me, "This is the album, Dad. This is the one. You need to do it for this album." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because, you know, you need to do it and you need to get it out of the way, because every time I start writing songs, he hears me saying, this could be it, this could be it, you know, and it's driving him crazy." So he said, "Look, you got to do it then, because once it's done, it's done. It's out of the way, and that's it." Because I actually love, you know, those movies. The Halloween series, I just love them. I think they're great. I'm generally not a hack and splatter sort of guy. I'm not really that interested in that kind of thing. But the Halloween movies have got something a little bit more than that. Yes, he goes around hacking people with a butcher's knife. I get that. But there's a little bit more to it than that. There's a supernatural element where you can't actually kill Michael Myers. No matter what you do to him, the guy keeps coming back. And that's kind of fascinated me for years. And I've wanted to write that down. So I finally did it this time round. And Alan took the original theme and sort of tweaked it so that we could play it with a heavy metal band rather than an orchestra. And you know, the original sort of piano playing at the start, we did that with picked guitar. And it to me, it just sounds great, and it's my tribute to the Halloween series.
Yeah, and I love how you sing home, how you.
Yeah, we did that quite deliberately. And on the first verse, we have like a little chorus from an orchestra, and it makes it all lovely and nice. But the second time round, it's deliberately sung slightly off key to make you feel uncomfortable. Just enough to make you feel uncomfortable. That was quite deliberate.
Yeah, and just like the end that you will hear actually, Michael.
You hear the breathing.
So who is singing with you, if there is anyone singing with you in Vertigo, especially in the verse before the guitar solo?
Yeah, throughout the entire album, Nick and my son Alan do all of the harmony and backing vocals. And Blitzkrieg now doesn't just have one singer; we have three, and they're all great singers in their own right. Nick has a couple of bands of his own in which he is the singer. Alan is the singer in Tyson Dog now.
Correct.
And he also sings in a Deep Purple tribute band, which is very, very good. Yeah, and it was a case of like, we've got three singers here. Let's utilize it to the best of the abilities of all three of us.
Hey, more time for Brian to do the talking.
Yes.
What about Aphrodite's Kiss? You have female vocals.
Yes.
Yeah. So
we do. Well, Aphrodite's Kiss was an idea that Alan had. And so I said, okay, what is the story? I'm talking lyrically here, not musically. It was the bass player that came up with the idea for that. But basically, what it was, Alan told me the story, and he said, "But I don't want to write it. You write it. You know." So I said, "Okay, I'll write it for you." He said, "No, I don't want you to write it for me. You just write it." So I said, "Okay." So I was getting what he was saying. So I wrote the song, and it's about a Greek warrior that goes off to war and gets himself severely injured. Although they win the war, he's brought home where he dies, and his wife pleads with the gods, particularly Aphrodite, to bring him back to life. And the gods, being what they are, always have to go that little step further. And rather than just bringing him back to life, Aphrodite makes him immortal. So then he has to go through the rest of his life, or, well, I'm saying the rest of his life, he's never going to die. So he goes for the rest of eternity, losing everything and everybody he's ever loved. And I thought that was an incredible story, so I just couldn't wait to get working on it. We got the singer from a local band called Crowley to come along and do the female voice, and she did an amazing job. It was great to work with her, and she's just worked so hard on that, and it was brilliant. And everybody's kind of talking about Aphrodite's Kiss, because they're saying, well, it's a strange one to finish an album on, but it's great. It's kind of like an epic, you know. And we thought, well, that's the result we wanted, really. We wanted to leave people thinking about that, because it would be so easy to put on as the last song of an album an 100-mile-an-hour jaunt with all guns blazing and double bass drums and everything going mad, which we tend to do in the past. But we wanted this one to be different, so we went with that, and that's it, really.
It's funny because I am Greek, and I was trying to search the Greek mythology and say, where is that story coming from? But now that I hear how you describe this, it could have been easily a Twilight Zone episode, because this is exactly what happens. They give you something, but it turns out, instead of being a blessing, it becomes a curse.
It becomes a curse. Absolutely.
Perfect.
And that's exactly what Alan wanted. He wanted that feel. And we were well aware that it wasn't part of the Iliad or anything like that. But we just wanted to do our little thing. Rather than talk about the entire army, just talk about one soldier, one warrior, and what happened to him. What does come across is that whenever the gods get involved, as you say, they give you what seems to be a blessing, but it turns out to be a curse in another way. So the wife gets her husband back, but he in turn loses everything. So it's crazy. But I think Lydia, as I say, she did such a great job doing the female voice. It was awesome. She did a great job.
Amazing. So I'm kind of approaching to wrap this up. I know you have a busy schedule. So we have Satan releasing songs in Crimson 1 week after Blitzkrieg. The Blitzkrieg album comes out. So
you couldn't make it up, honestly. I
How?
didn't want it to happen this way, but it just seems to have happened again, where Blitzkrieg and Satan are releasing albums at the same time. It's a nightmare, but hey, it's a nice nightmare to have. To be fair,
And
it
for
is.
us too. How do you expect to split the touring though?
Well, I'm out on tour with Satan throughout September and the start of October, and by which time Blitzkrieg should be ready to do a few gigs around and about and get ready for the festivals for next year, and possibly do a European tour as well. And then Satan will be out off to America. So we have the same manager, so it's easy to keep the things right. Jarvis Leatherby.
Mm-hmm.
He gets gigs for both Satan and Blitzkrieg, so that makes sure that there's no clashes.
Oh, here's an idea. I'm sure. Why don't
I
we
know
have
where this is
Blitzkrieg
going.
Blitzkrieg and Satan on the same billing?
No, I mean it would be a lovely thing from the fans' point of view. It'd be great, and it would be lovely to be able to do that.
Mm.
But it would be a lot of hard work for me because the Satan songs are difficult to sing. So are the Blitzkrieg ones, and I wouldn't want to sort of put myself through that of doing two gigs in one night. It's just too much.
It's just the selfish side of me that's the talking right now. However,
Never say never. You never know. One day it might happen, just as a one-off. I don't know.
do you see Blitzkrieg crossing the Atlantic and coming to the US?
Yes, we really want to do that, and Jarvis is working on that right now. He's been working on the Satan one. And now he's starting to work on the Blitzkrieg one as well. So hopefully we'll be able to do that as well.
Do you know approximately when Satan will be in the States?
February and March, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think that was the case at one point. I think we'll find out for sure once Jarvis comes back and says, right, the tour is this. But I know he initially wanted us to go over in February and March. Whether that is still the case, I don't know.
Well, whatever the case may be, February or March, we will be waiting for you. Brian, it has been such a pleasure, such an honor talking to you.
Thank you. You're a gentleman. Thank you.
I wish the best for the band. Stay healthy, everyone. And Satan and Blitzkrieg, all the best.
Thank you very much. You're a gentleman. Thank you, sir.
Have a wonderful rest of your day.
And you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.